Okay, shalom to all. Parshat Korach, this week's Torah reading, raises many questions, especially about the placement of this parsha in between Chetam Raglim, which is the beginning of 40 years in the desert, with the decree that the Dor Midbar will die out in the desert, and only the children will come into the land as promised. And on the other hand, Parshat Chukat, where we clearly see the beginning of the 40th year, where the children are preparing to fulfill their destiny and go into the land as promised by the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Moshe in Yetziat Mitzrayim, and of course before that to the Avot. The question is, what is the significance of this parsha, Parshat Korach, the merid of Korach, the revolution that he tries to create? What's the reason why, for some kind of machloket, whether it's l'shem shemayim or not l'shem shemayim, why does the outcome have to be that many people lose their lives? Machloket is a basis of our understanding of what we call Torah Shebal Peh, the renewal of the Torah in every generation, which includes a discussion, difference of opinions. How is it that we don't have a negative attitude towards machloket? Well, as long as it's l'shem shemayim. But here, even if it's l'shem shemayim, not l'shem shemayim, why did it necessitate a miracle being done, and of course, the death of so many people? There must be some greater message here that was given to that generation and to the generations to come, including ourselves. If we look closely in the parsha, we see that Korach himself says to Moshe, when he first approaches Moshe, "Vayamru alehem rav lechem kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim v'tocham Adonai umadu tetnasu al kal Adonai." So many will say, well, it really has to do with the choice of Kohanim, Leviim. It's an internal debate, an internal question. How did Moshe choose Aharon? How did he choose his sons? We all could be worthy of being Kohanim. I mean, he couldn't say we were all worthy of being Leviim because he himself was a Levi. And later on, we hear the dissent of his partners. Datan v'Aviram. They say, "Hama'at ki elitanu me'eretz me'avat chalav u'davash, lamitenu b'midbar, ki tistarer aleinu gam histarer." They don't mention anything about Moshe's choice that Aharon should be a Kohen. They're just complaining that we're going to die here in the desert. You didn't bring us, as you promised, to the land, to Eretz Avat chalav u'davash. They don't even mention anything about possibly of going back to Mitzrayim, like the Am mentioned after they heard the words of the Meraglim. And in hysteria, they say, let's go back to Mitzrayim. So it seems, in my opinion, that we're talking here about something totally different. That when he says Kulam Kedoshim, he's not referring to the fact that we want to be Kohanim and then choose from us instead of Aharon somebody else. But basically what they're saying is that now that we are staying in the desert, now that we are going to, we have no hope for our future, for Nachala and Eretz Yisrael and Eretz Zavat Chalav Udavash. So all the people are on the same standing. The division between Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisrael, that was a projection for the future in Eretz Yisrael. But now that we're going to die here, so we should reorganize the whole society of Am Yisrael. Around the Mikdash, it all should be on the same level. And you can come to the conclusion from that their intention was to create an alternate Torah society. When we're going to Eretz Yisrael, so we're going to the Eretz Vatchalav Adavash, we're going to get Nachalot, we are going to be a normal people, working in the land, providing for ourselves, but at the same time, the Torah obligates us to fulfill the mitzvot, to keep a kesher with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Aliyah l'regel, to the Mikdash, to the special place of Hashrat HaShechina, to the place where the Aseret Debrot the discussion, the live contact with the Kadosh Baruch Hu continues through the renewal of our Torah in every generation, from Har HaBayit, from the Sanhedrin, from the Mikdash. That dialectic between normal life and the life and the sensitivity to being in the shadow of the Mikdash, in the shadow of the Shekhinah, that's what we're looking for. But now we're all Kedoshim, we're all here around the Mikdash, we're all on the same level. So let's cancel all that. Now, what would happen to the children who are growing up in the desert? Hashem said to them, which we read in last week's parsha, that the children will survive and they will go on to the land, inherit the land. I mean, they will then formulate that type of a lifestyle, nachala and mikdash. The parents, if they go according to Korach and his friends, will formulate a new society for 40 years. What messages will they give to their children? Will they give the children a message of how we're unique people, we're kulanu kedoshim, we're all equal here around the Mikdash, close to Hashem all the time, no challenges, we'll continue eating man forever. We want to grow our own food and provide for ourselves and our families. We won't have to deal with any of those issues. We'll be all in the incubator around the Mikdash. And then Hashem says, also with Moshe, that Moshe said, to Hashem, don't accept their mincha, the Ktoret, and the parsha unfolds in both groups. The Maktarei Ktoret and also Datan Bavaram, their followers, are all destroyed, each in different ways. The message that goes on from this parsha is that even though the hitnachalut, the promise of Hashem, is delayed, that the people have to have the faith and have to have the perseverance to wait it out, but to teach your children how things are supposed to be, where we're going. And I think that this message is what's at the heart of this parsha. That even though they were in the Midbar for 40 years, or about to be in the Midbar for 40 years, they have to know, they have to keep the structure of society, of the ideal society that the Torah is teaching us to create in the land. On one hand, being the hitnachalut, the ability to provide for yourselves, working in the land, and at the same time, the consciousness of being in the awareness of the Mikdash. That is the message that these Dorma Bidbar, even though they themselves were doomed, that they were going to have to pass on to their children. And when we jump next week in Parshat Chukat to the end of the 40 years, and we see the excitement of the younger generation of wanting to go into the land and take their part in the fulfillment of Hashem's promises, that we say to ourselves, this is amazing. The parents were doomed. They didn't escape, they didn't run away. They stayed and they kept their responsibility towards their children to educate them and direct them to the promised land, to be prepared to go in, to take on the excitement of being part of the enterprise and fulfillment of Hashem's promises to the Avot, Tarte Mashma, the Avot, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, and also to the Avot, their parents. Even though they would be lost, and of course there's no evidence of where they were buried in the Midbar Sinai, but their children went on to the land and to fulfill Hashem's promises. I just want to end off with a personal note. As many of you know, I personally was involved in the development of the Yeshiva's library for over 40 years. And one of the motivations that developed in me as the years went by was the understanding that our leadership here in the yeshiva, the dreamers, that wanted this enterprise of the library to be part of the Beit Midrash, the great Beit Midrashs they conceived of, they were dreaming of. They wanted to bring the legacy of Am Yisrael Bamidbar in the past 2,000 years. Well, here we have records of our ancestors' stubbornness to keep Torah alive, to keep the mitzvot relevant from generation to generation. And if we are here today, with all our successes, Bezrat Hashem, then we have to still give the honor to them and bring these volumes to life here in our library. And even though we have many of these volumes in the library here, as you see in the special room, the collection of the Amsterdam room, that even though we have it here in the renewed library with many other editions, newer editions, modern editions, nevertheless to be able to see and to feel and to understand the devotion of our ancestors to keep Torah alive in the Midbar goes back to this Parshat Korach, where they realize that in order to keep it going, we have to dream. We have to dream of the ideal, the return to Eretz Yisrael, Beit HaMikdash, Nachalat Eretz Yisrael. That is all part of our Torah that comes here from Yeshivat HaRetzion.